Hey guys, what's up? My name is Vince, and welcome to today's video where I'm using my Canon 5D Mark II as a webcam, I guess, with OBS. I'm using it for the first time. It's an old camera. Not able to hit focus properly, but I guess that's okay. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about addiction and how basically the way I see addiction is not exactly that addiction is the problem. The addiction, the addictive process, the addictive personality definitely causes massive issues, but that seems to be the symptoms of the actual underlying problem. And the way I see it, whether you're addicted to a substance or a ritual, a behavior, the objective is all the same. Especially if you read The Addictive Personality by Craig Nakken. He really talks about this in very good depth in a very short little tiny book. And basically, any addiction is trying to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. That's every single addiction, whether that's to food, that's to a drug, alcohol, drugs, um, gambling, sex, social media in the modern day, maybe adult videos for young men. It's a numbing agent. That's what it really is. A lot of times people get criticized for their addictions. They feel that, excuse me, I'm going to turn up the gain a little bit. A person is bad for doing such an activity. Talk to any addict that is trying to maintain sobriety and they're working on their recovery. They're not having a lot of fun doing it. It's very torturous being in that kind of space. So yeah, even though people have different kinds of addiction, the goal of all addictions is basically the same. And the rituals that people participate in, they disconnect you from humanity. You're trying to be a whole person, trying to, make meaningful relationships, but due to the addiction, you're forced to have a relationship, seemingly, with something that provides needs but takes away a lot of your humanity. You know, Participating in something that you feel like is going to give you meaning eventually because it is so exact, in giving us the feelings we need in the moment. And it's very insidious. It's very clever. That's why it's easy for people to fall into addiction and early recovery. They say they're coming out of rehab or they're working on their food addiction or restricting or whatever, gambling. Is that they haven't built the relationships yet. They haven't made the neural pathways in their mind to make that a second nature. Oftentimes, make that their new way of handling things. The old way of handling things was when I'm stressed, I go to the drug. When I have a problem, I go to the drug. If I'm feeling great, I go to the drug. I go to the ritual. I go to the addictive process. And that's what the triggers are, right? Understanding those triggers. Like a lot of people undermine those in rehab. But that's the important stuff. Like what is pushing you to act out? The acting out pushes us to do things that are against the self. And when someone is in a full blown addiction, they have, accepted that, okay, I'm an addict. This is just part of my life. The way I look at it is the person's personality has been split, where there's one set of values, and Craig Nakken mentions this in his book, The Addictive Personality, where there's one set of values, the addictive values, that cares about escape, pleasure, and then there's the self where it's trying to be present, is trying to be in a place where it's trying to get its needs met, but not at the cost of everything, of all of the relationships. And it's like a conflict, right? Like that's where the battle is. And whenever we act out with our addictive personality, that's where the shame and guilt comes from. Like, why couldn't I control my impulses? That's very common in terms of relapse in the beginning. That's why people come to treatment 7, 8, 9 times before they get better, because it's like a battle. They're battling their addictions. They're battling their version of themselves that's like the worst version of themselves, that's ripping them away from their humanity to act out, because their feeling is pushing them to do that. Not to say that they're not responsible for what happens when they are acting out. If someone ends up dying or you get into an accident, like, there's going to be consequences for those behaviors. There's no way around that. But limiting those, understanding those, abstinence, definitely for hard drugs and, alcoholism, there's no 50-50 for any of that stuff. Like, you have to just give it up. It's a little bit more of a different kind of dance when it's something like sex addiction or porn addiction, in terms of things like that. And it requires a lot of effort, a lot of mindfulness, and developing relationships. That's a huge part of it. And a lot of people, especially if you've been like under the influence for like 20 years, one thing they talk about in, like, if you go to rehab and whatnot, is like you get stunted, like your emotional state gets stunted from when you started becoming an addict. So say you started at 15, and you'll hear this from a bunch of people. You're an addict at 15, and the medium can be anything. Like, I want to make that like crystal clear. It could be, like you're addicted to adult content online, or you're addicted to food, like anything that makes you escape. And like, when I think about that, is the escape is inappropriate, because if you were able to use healthy ways of managing yourself, if you were able to use healthy coping skills opposed to the addictive rituals, behavior, the actual act of using the drug or engaging in that behavior, like you would be learning things. Like, you'd be learning how to develop relationships, how to listen to your inner feelings, but like by submitting yourself to the addiction that is, that's inside of you, the addictive personality that is inside of you. Like, we're becoming enslaved by that process. And that's why it's so scary. Like, you're inside of yourself. The true version of yourself is with the addict at all times. At all times. And that even in recovery, the addict version of yourself is just waiting for an opportunity to come out. And waiting, it's like with a bat, just waiting for you to slip up a little bit, give like a kind of like a, maybe a, just humor the idea that, hey, like, maybe we should just have a drink. It's been a year. It's been a year and 6 months. We've been doing pretty good. Like, just one drink. That's how people have slips. That's how people go back into full-blown addiction. And addiction is a progressive disease. That's a very scary part about addiction. It doesn't get better. Like, you have to make tremendous effort to get better. Otherwise, it will always get worse. It does not just suddenly just disappear. It's like part of you. And it's very consistent, too. So in the next video, I'll talk about ways people manage it, steps you can take in terms of addressing your addiction, and the journey for everyone is unique. Everyone has different resources. People come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. People are coming from different cultures. They have different mindsets. Maybe they have a family of addicts that draws them back into addiction. Maybe they live in an environment where drugs are very easily available. Maybe their work makes it very easy to get drugs or use with people. Maybe all of your friends are all drug users. So there's a lot of barriers that comes along with addiction. And when one person is sick with like with an addiction, it ends up being like a family disease. It ends up impacting everyone. People must respond to that person in a certain way. And it really depends on the person and their relationship with other people. Sometimes they isolate themselves or whatever, or maybe they burn bridges. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.